But as for me and my house, we will do what we gotta do. We will serve the Lord, and we do what we gotta do to protect those children. I mean, this is far too important to ignore. I do not want people just to talk about this and let it die off. Let's not treat it like as if it's some sort of hype. Let's not treat it like as if we're going through the motions. That is not good enough. Just spreading the message about the truth of what's happening and just let it die off, that's not good enough. We need to do more than that. We need to peacefully protest and and keep fighting that mountain. For those of us who are in Christ, we need to pray that the rock of Christ will crush the mountain of Baal and crush the mountain of sex trafficking. For those who are not in Christ, I mean, regardless if you're religious or not, anyone who holds onto morality, anyone who believes that children that are important, which all of us should believe, but sadly there are people that don't. But for all of us that do, we need, regardless of our differences, we need to work together to fight this thing. Because we can't just sit by and do nothing. And it's not just with that, but we also need to take care of things at home as well. Meaning, if you have children of your own, first off, teach your children about stranger danger. Teach them everything you've got to teach them about it. If you have to, what my parents used to do with me and my brother is that sometimes they would leave and they would test us by pretending to be a stranger and see if we'd open the door for them. Sometimes they'll do that just to prepare us what to do. They would tell us that if a stranger comes up and they are not home, to not tell them that they're not home, to not open the door and stuff like that. That they would try to prepare us to know what to do in different situations. And you can do that. You can do that with your kids, just to teach them what you gotta teach them. I can't remember the name of it, but there is a YouTube channel that does talk about it, and I think the age range is from 5 on up, and all their videos are age appropriate. I mean, it goes more into detail about things like that with teenagers and stuff, but for the little ones, it's simple enough for them to understand without going into any gruesome details. Again, I wish I could remember the name of it, but right now I unfortunately don't. But you can find it on YouTube, and you can watch that with your kids. That can also help you teach them about that. Also, if you see any signs of any neglect or abuse going on, don't just do nothing. And listen, I admit, years ago, and well, thankfully in this particular situation, the children were not, as far as I knew, being harmed in a sexual way, but they were being very much neglected. And what happened is that it was in the middle of the winter. I was walking by myself, and I saw these 2 kids playing nearby this frozen water in the park. And there was no adults around. They was only wearing pajamas. That was it. They had no shoes, no gloves, no coat. Sorry, sinus issues. But anyway, there was no shoes, no gloves, no coats, no nothing. And I asked them, well, why are you out here? Where are your parents? And apparently their parents was watching them from the house, which was across the road. But I'm looking at these kids, and I'm like, well, why are you out here without any coats or anything? And I made the mistake of not reporting those parents to the police, which I should have done. I should have immediately got my phone and said something to the police. But the most I had done was that I told them that they needed to go back home. And it's not safe to be out here by themselves. Be out there by themselves with no coats or nothing on. But I did not do for those kids what I should have done. I should have reported those parents. I should have done more. Excuse me a second. Sorry about that, but anyway. But I don't know what's happened to those kids since then, and I just hope that things did not get. We're not. I just hope that the parent, what I done in that moment when I should have done the right thing, I gave the parents the benefit of a doubt, which I should not have done. And the only reason why I'm admitting to the reason why I'm admitting to this on the internet is because I know I was wrong for not doing what I was supposed to do for 1 and 2. I do not want people to make the same mistake that I made in that moment. Do not do that. Don't give the parents the benefit down. Don't think, well, hopefully, they won't do this again, or hopefully, it won't get any worse. Don't do that. Do not do that. I have seen over the years, sadly, that a lot of so-called parents care more about themselves than their own kids. That they're more concerned about being at peace than they are their own children's safety. And I should have thought about the fact that maybe those kids being out there alone like that probably was not the first time that's happened. And I should have thought about that. I should have called the police, or at the very least, I should have gone back with them to that house and give the parents a peace of my mind. I should have at least done that. But I just chose just to tell them to go back home. And that's all I did. I should have done more to protect them. And I very much regret that I didn't. And I'm very sorry that I didn't. But again, I want people to know this because I don't want them to make the same mistake. Please don't do that. There was another situation a year or two before when I was a senior in high school, and ironically, again, it was during winter season. At that time, I have not yet received a driver's license, so I went to, ironically, the same park. I went to the park after school, and it was snowing, and I was waiting for my papa to come and pick me up. Well, while I was waiting for him, the elementary school bus comes by, they drops off all the children, and all of them go off with their parents to homes except for one little girl. And she was 7 years old at the time. She's waiting for someone to come to get her. I'm waiting for Papa to get me, and about half an hour goes by, and I'm seeing that nobody's coming for her. No one's coming for her. And I came up to her and I said, is somebody, coming to get you? She told me that her mother did not want to come and get her because apparently she didn't want to, take her little baby brother in the car. And I guess her older brother, for some rather dumb reason, couldn't come get her either. And I waited with her and waited with her and waited with her and waited with her, and still no one was showing up. My papa comes, and I asked him I asked him if we could drop her off, and we did. We took her to her house, and I was very ticked because I found that her mother only lived 2 blocks away. Just 2 blocks away. She did not live very far away at all. Just 2 blocks. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You couldn't take the time to heat up your car when you knew your daughter was about to get dropped off. You couldn't take the time to heat up your car, bundle up your little one, put him in the car, and come get your daughter. She couldn't take the time to do that. And it was also very disturbing to me is that the mother was, well, to me, way too happy that a stranger dropped her daughter off at her house. I mean, I was hoping at the very least that the mother would have been concerned that a stranger dropped her off. I don't know if it was because I was, a if I was female, a male. I don't know if that was the reason why she wasn't so concerned. I have no idea. But she acted like she just was not concerned whatsoever. And even though I did the right thing in taking the girl home, still, I should have done more. I should have, grilled into her mother, or at the very least say, if I ever catch you leaving your daughter out here like this again, I'm calling the police on you. But again, I stupidly gave the parent bit of a doubt. Listen, if you know something's going on with some child somewhere, don't think, well, maybe the parent will do right. Maybe the parent will change. Because that's what I was thinking. Maybe the parent will get some sense in their head and not do this ever again. You can't do that. You can't trust that, because one thing you have to think about is that maybe they have done this. Maybe they've done it more than once. Maybe they've left that child outside by themselves like that more than once. Or, maybe they left that child alone at home more than once. I mean, even if it isn't a situation where a child is being harmed in a physical way, meaning meaning an abuse, even there's no abuse going on, you should not just sit there if you know that child is being neglected in any way. Don't make the same mistakes that I have made. Do not make the same mistakes I made. I should have done more than just advise those two first children to go home, and I should have done more than just drop that daughter back off to her house. I should have done more than that, and I very much regret that I did not. Do not make the same mistakes that I have made. I mean, I was very happy that I helped that. I was very, I'm glad that as far as I knew, no harm came to those kids. I'm glad that no stranger came and picked them up, because that was the thing that I was fearing the most in both situations. I was so scared that some stranger was going to come around and pick those kids up. Parents a lot of adults choose to be numbskulls and choose to be way too trusting of the area they live in. Because there's been so many times where people have the attitude that because if they live in a small town or they live in a country that all is perfectly safe and you don't have to, be cautious about anything type of thing. Because many times growing up in that same town, where those two situations happen, I've seen many times where I would see like 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old kids running around town completely by themselves with no adult supervision whatsoever. They're just walking around by themselves. And I'm like, these parents are completely lazy. They are lazy. They are neglectful. Why would you let your kid run around like that? And every time I just get scared that some weirdo is going to come and pick them up. And sadly, many children have been taken because they've had very neglectful parents. They cared more about getting the kids out of their hair than protecting their kids. I mean, I have children. I do not let them out of my sight. I do not let them out of my sight. I don't care if they get to teenage age. I'm going to know where they're at. I'm going to know where they are at. And I will be there right by them if I can help it. I'm not taking that risk with my kids, no way. And some people are like, well, that's helicopter. So what? I'd rather be a helicopter parent than a lazy parent that take a very stupid risk like that. I don't care if my kids get upset with me for getting in their business. As parents, we need to get into their business. We are to be parents first, not a friend. We are to be the parents first. If they don't like it, well, tough luck. I'd rather be protective of them than being so nonchalant, where there's risks being taken where they could possibly be hurt. Because again, sadly, many children have been taken because of parents who chose not to be there for them, who chose just to push them out of their hair and not make sure they're safe at all. I mean, I'm not saying it's like that with every situation when a kidnapping happens. I'm not saying that, but let's be honest. That is a big reason why many kidnappings have happened. Because parents are too neglectful. But one last thing I want to talk about too is that if you know someone, especially a child, that comes up to you and says so and so has touched me, please, for the love of God, do not ignore that child. Do not automatically write the child off and say, "Oh, that child's lying," because you're taking a very huge risk that if they are indeed telling the truth, that you're just risking that your child getting hurt all the more. And not just your child, but others as well. Because my mother, when she was 6 years old, her married in uncle, and the reason why I call it is because he shouldn't be called family, in my opinion. But anyway, her married in so-called uncle molested her. She was 6 years old, and sadly, only very few of her family members believed her. The rest of them just wrote her off and say, "Oh no, he didn't do that, you're lying." And guess what they found out years later? They found out years later that same man was raping his own daughter for years. For years, he was raping his own daughter. And sadly, there's a chance that he also did something to my uncle too. And because most of the family chose to ignore my mother when she told them the truth, her cousin, my mom paid the price as well, don't get me wrong. As far as I know, that uncle has not touched my mom since that has happened, but my mom still has paid the price nonetheless, since they didn't believe her. But sadly, her cousin has definitely paid the price. They could have prevented that man from hurting my mom's cousin so if they just would have listened to my mom. But because they chose not to, he tore his own daughter apart. I know, sadly, there are times when kids are coached to lie, and trust me, I also find that very sick and demented of people when they teach their children, when they tell kids to lie about things like that, and they're willing to put their child through trauma like that. Because listen, telling a child to lie on someone, putting it in their mind that something happened to them when it didn't, put them through that trauma, that is so sick. It's so disgusting. It's satanic. It's just so gross. And it's just so wrong on so many levels. But even though that is the case, and sometimes it does happen, I would say about maybe 98 or 99% of the time, the kids are not being coached and they are telling the truth. And you just don't. But either way, whether you're suspicious of being coached or not, you don't want to take any risks. You should look into it, have an investigation happen either way. Because if it is true that that's going on, you don't want to risk them being hurt even more, and that whoever that person, you don't, and listen, I don't care who they're accusing. I don't care if they're accusing a pastor at a church. I don't care if they're accusing a family friend or a very close relative. You've got to do what you got to do to protect your kids and look into it. So if we see the signs of any type of neglect or any abuse happen, we should not ignore it. We shouldn't just say, oh, well, hopefully the parents don't make the same mistake that I did and say, well, hopefully the parents will get some sense in their head and, do otherwise. Don't do that. Do not do that. Please don't do that. Don't make the same mistake I made. Don't do that. We've got to do what we've got to do to protect all kids. And there's nothing wrong with being what a lot of people want to call overprotective. There's nothing wrong with it. As long as you don't go so far to where you completely cage them and shelter them and not let them have life at all. If it was, yeah, you don't want to go that far, but being a little bit of a helicopter parent and being protective, that's not bad. And don't let people make you think it's bad. If you choose not to allow your kids ever go outside or whatever at all, then yeah, that's going too far. But if you're like monitoring their phone calls, monitoring, their texts, monitoring what they're doing on the internet, that's not being that is not going over that I'm sorry, but it's not, as long as they're under your household, they have to abide by the rules. And plus, it shouldn't be a problem, monitoring, their phones and stuff, put a tracker on the phone. There's nothing wrong with that if they have nothing to, it shouldn't be an issue if they have absolutely nothing to hide. I understand, yes, they need privacy. I'm not saying they don't. But you do have to keep on them and make sure that they don't put themselves in any type of dangerous situation, especially with all the stuff going on the internet. With that especially, you have to monitor what's going on the internet. You have to monitor any chat rooms they may be in, or, monitor anybody and everybody that they're talking to over the internet. You have got to keep on with that. About a month or so ago, I was playing, I think it's called Fishdom. It's a game, and there was one person that was, telling people, and she was a little girl, that she was telling people her age and what stage she lives and stuff, and I told her, do not give people your information. Do not tell people, do not give strangers your information, because there are a lot of people that would use that information. I was basically telling her that there are bad strangers and you don't need to be telling people anything. And that's another thing that you need to very strongly tell your kids and tell your teenagers. My personal opinion, I don't think kids should be left alone on the internet no matter what the age, they should be monitored, but I wouldn't even let 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds be on Facebook or anything either. That's just way too young. They don't need to be on a Facebook. Also, as far as cell phones go, they don't need a daggone smartphone. You can just get them a regular flip phone with talk and text, and that's all they need. They do not need a smartphone. I would not advise giving them smartphones. Yeah, call that going to a fart helicopter or whatever. I don't care. I'd rather be protective than take stupid risks. I have learned my lesson when it came to those children. I have never forgot when it came to my mistakes that I've made when it came to those kids. I have learned my lesson, and I am never gonna act so ridiculous and dumb like that ever again. If I see stuff like that going on, I'm gonna report the parents. I'm not just gonna give them benefit of doubt. I have learned my lesson on that. But whatever all of us have got to do, we have got to protect the kids. Do not listen to leftists. Do not listen to CNN and them trying to downplay the serious situation of the subject in the movie Sound of Freedom. Do not let them, try to stop you from seeing it. Do not let them convince you that it's QAnon. Because again, I don't care even if it had a relation to QAnon. I don't care. Because at least with QAnon, they are trying to protect children. They're trying to talk people to protect children, as far as I know. At least they're doing that. And again, the fact that the leftists don't want to support something that actually protects children is very telling. But it's not a surprise. It's not a surprise. I don't think it's a surprise to any of us, honestly. Or at least it shouldn't be a surprise. As so evil as they are, this should not surprise us. But I'm going to go ahead and get off here. God help us. God help us save our children. In Jesus' name, amen.